Angela, it took 4.5 months and the death or injury of almost 100,000 civilians in Gaza for the Labour Party to back a ceasefire. On day one of a Labour government, will you end arms sales to Israel?
Stephen Flynn, speak directly to Penny.
You know what the public can't afford, Penny, is any longer one single day more of a Conservative government which is completely out of touch with the reality on the ground.
Let me respond. Right, Nigel Farage.
Christine, the answer to your question is, what are they going to do about it? Neither of them will do anything. These people have lied to us repeatedly. And Labour, and
you made a career of doing that.
Repeatedly. I know, I've actually always told the truth. I've always told the truth.
Right, so 7 more leaders who appeared on BBC a few days ago as part of the ongoing leaders debate in the election campaign. They also now appeared on ITV tonight. And they were basically the deputies of their respective parties, except Nigel Farage, who happens to be the head of Reform Party. Now, the decision has not gone down well, and George Galloway has already protested, asking ITV as to why he's not going to be invited, even though he's a 7-term parliamentarian and the leader of Workers' Party. That said, let's kind of dwell on the debate as to how it went. When these 7 people appeared on BBC, I had told you how the two stars of the debate were the leader of 2 regional parties, which is Plaid Cymru and SNP. Now, tonight, to me, Plaid Cymru leader appeared to be slightly muted. He wasn't as fiery as he was when he appeared on BBC. Compared to that, Stephen Flynn continued to roar. I think tonight, again, the standout performance of one particular leader in that debate was of Stephen Flynn. Stephen Flynn, literally, he was on fire all throughout the debate. And I'll just take you through few moments. And that really shows that how this person is capable of embarrassing the mainstream political parties as well as scoring brownie points for his own constituencies, for his own political outfit. It's a shame that his party is only limited to Scotland, because the way this guy is representing his party, I won't be surprised if he finds a lot of takers even outside Scotland. I mean, to me, if I'm an undecided voter and I'm listening to him in England, I would be quite tempted to vote for him. That's how good he was. For an example, at one point, when the presenter asked everybody to say that who amongst them agrees on the need to reduce the net migration, even if it means, reducing, because as you know, key services in the UK, including the NHS, are heavily dependent on the same migrant workers that these political parties, some of these political parties, want out. Now, reducing those migrants, the number of those migrants would have catastrophic impact on the performance of those services. And yet, out of those 7 people, 4 leaders of 4 political parties said that they were in favor of reducing net migration. Who were they? They were Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem and Reform. Now, that particular development did not go down well with Stephen Flynn. And remember, and see how he reacted.
Just before we get the debate flowing, please raise your hand if you think the net level of legal migration, that is the additional number of people coming to the country to work and live, needs to fall. Please raise your hand. The number needs to fall.
What a sorry
Nigel
reflection.
Farage, Penny Mordaunt.
It's due to fall anyway.
Daisy Cooper, Angela Rayner.
The
Thank you very
Westminster
much.
status quo. That's
Thank
exactly.
you.
That's the Westminster
No, it's not
status
at all.
quo. Of course
No,
it is.
no,
The
no.
4 main
Stephen.
parties.
No, it isn't.
The 4 main
No, it isn't,
parties
Stephen.
all with the exact.
Now, that wasn't just the only performance. That was just in the beginning of the debate. As the debate progressed, Stephen Flynn continued to grow in confidence. And by the way, there were moments when Nigel Farage embarrassed himself. I don't know how the polls are showing that his party's rating is going up, because if tonight's debate is anything to go by, clearly the guy is just not popular. Nobody takes him seriously. For an example, at one point when he accuses Labour and Conservative of lying, that causes ironic laughter amongst the audience, because they think that the one person who clearly lied in the last few years over Brexit was Nigel Farage. So with that in mind, clearly the audience burst into laughter.
Right, Nigel Farage.
Christine, the answer to your question is, what are they going to do about it? Neither of them will do anything. These people have lied to us repeatedly, and Labour,
and you made a career of doing that.
Repeatedly. I know. I've actually always told the truth. I've always told the truth.
On another occasion, Stephen Flynn finds plenty of support from the audience when he says that the voters do not want to see even one more extra day of Conservatives in power. And that line particularly, drew lots of applause.
Stephen Flynn, speak directly to Penny.
You know what the public can't afford, Penny, is any longer one single day more of a Conservative government which is completely out of touch with the reality on the ground.
Let me respond to that directly.
Ultimately, if we are going to move this conversation on to economic growth and what comes next, because that's probably where it's going to go. And, Angela said that she wants economic growth, but she didn't mention the single market, didn't mention freedom of movement, and didn't mention the fact that the Labour Party have walked away from £28 billion of investment in net zero technologies, whilst the United States, Europe and everyone else is going down that route to grow the economy. The Westminster consensus is alive and well, and it doesn't serve you well, and ultimately it will be the people who need it most, the people who can't afford the shops, the people who are ultimately living in poverty who will feel the consequences of Westminster's priorities.
He wasn't just embarrassing the Conservative, he also took a pot shot on the Labour, as he asked Angela Rayner to clarify her party's stand on the arms sale to Israel in the wake of Gaza genocide that is happening. And we know that more than 40,000 people, with more than 70% of them being children and women, killed by Israeli terrorists. He raises that question. Now, Angela Rayner, as you know, she and her party have had a quite dubious role as far as the Gaza genocide goes, purely to please their Israeli friends. However, the fear of electoral defeat has forced them to change their stand. So if they have changed their stand on Gaza, do not be fooled by the fact that they have started caring about Gazans. No. We know that Angela Rayner was in the mosque recently, literally kneeling and begging for votes from Muslims. And clearly that fear is causing anxiety amongst lots of Labour politicians just before the elections. So tonight again, nobody was surprised when we heard a changed stance of Labour Party on Gaza.
Stephen Flynn, time for your question.
It's like being back in the Commons. Angela, it took 4.5 months and the death or injury of almost 100,000 civilians in Gaza for the Labour Party to back a ceasefire. On day one of a Labour government, will you end arms sales to Israel?
Stephen, you know as well as I do, what happened on the 7th of October was barbaric, and Israel had the right to defend itself. However, since then, the absolute loss of innocent lives, thousands of innocent lives, everyone in the House, everyone of all political persuasions have been pushing for a ceasefire, as well as our international counterparts. But if we were in government, we would immediately review, as we've been asking the Conservatives, the legal advice on arms sales to Israel, and we will comply with international law.
Penny Mordaunt continued to embarrass herself. Her tactic seems to be, heckling her opponent, particularly Angela Rayner. She did that on the BBC debate, and tonight was no different. And that kind of had some impact, positive impact for her, because Angela Rayner at one point forgot the question that one of her rivals had asked. So clearly that is having an impact on Angela Rayner. But it doesn't mean that her graphs or her political stakes are growing. In fact, the more she speaks, the more embarrassment she heaps on herself. For an example, at one occasion, she wanted to give an example of Rishi Sunak's track record as Prime Minister to impress upon the voters that what a wonderful job Tory has done, and that only invited one more round of ironic laughter from the audience.
Why on earth should anybody believe the fifth manifesto that promises cuts to net migration?
Because of the record of this Prime Minister. So we've had...
That's fine. I'm happy.
So overall, I would say that Stephen Flynn was the standout winner, and the usual suspects of the Westminster politics continue to fight among themselves. As an undecided voter, I would say that they have a mountain to climb to convince those voters to vote for them between now and 4th of July. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.